out everything that is available to you on their site. Ton of MYPB swag as well as other stuff. And as the seasons are changing, there's a lot of stuff out there for you to get. Go check it out. But most importantly, when you go to the checkout screen, use promo code MYPB and save yourself 20% off your total order. We thank DraftKings as well. This is episode 196, 196. So that is again, 196 if you're joining using this Spanish. Features available to you today or whenever you're listening to this episode. You can DM us at any time or go to the Instagram page at Mind Your Pucking Business, which coincidentally we are also live on right now. If you're watching on Instagram, you can watch us live on YouTube. We are taping this episode on the last day of April. That would be April 30th. And you can stream it at any time on Spotify and iTunes. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like Brian might be a little angry today. He just started the show without any warning. We're live.
Yeah.
He's coming after you today.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll get to it a little later. We're not going to make a huge deal of it.
Wow.
I mean, you know what? He hasn't seen me in 2 weeks, so you know. But
I thought you guys could cohabitate.
We can. We're good. All right. Wow. So the last time we were on, again, we were off last week. So the last time we were on was the day before the last game of the season, which was the Thursday night game against Tampa. And, you know, that at that point, we really were looking for just the season to end, season from hell to end. We were looking for Sam's last game, and we were thrown, as this whole season has been, a wrench the morning of that last game, which was these accusations against Artemi Panarin that came out on that Thursday morning. Now, what is unconfirmed? What's unconfirmed? What I'm about to say is unconfirmed, but it's out there. So I'm going to say that it's possible it's true, but I don't know if it's true. But I've seen it in a couple different places that the accusation stems from an event that occurred on a road trip in December of 2023. So it wasn't even this past season; it was the season before, in a hotel bar after a game on the road, where I believe Panarin took a female employee's phone and the phone ended up in his room, yada, yada, yada. Now, the NHL was aware of this. The NHL didn't get word of this event that morning when we all did, because they already investigated it, and I'm pretty sure determined that there was nothing there to that they would need to sanction the player, being Panarin. Usually, though, just in life, and it's not always the case, but usually where there is smoke, which this situation is, there is some sort of fire. So, look, he played that night. I think if the Rangers thought that this was a disaster, he probably wouldn't have played that night, especially because the game was meaningless. They didn't have a reason to play him. If you thought this was going to be a PR nightmare, why would you even play him? The game doesn't matter. But it also illustrates to me, it's just on the last day of the season for this to happen. This whole season is what else can go wrong? Like, my goodness, like everything just piles up and piles up. The last game of the season, the Tampa game, they won 4-0. I could care less. You know, in some ways you could even argue they're better off losing a game like that because it increases your draft odds. And the Rangers, just so you know, have a 3% chance of getting the first pick. That's where they are. Now, maybe if they lose the game, that number goes to 5 or 6%. It wouldn't have been anything astronomical in the difference, but whatever. You know, you've known all year, and you've actually known since last August. And I remember when this came out because I was walking through hell in Universal Studios in Orlando in August because it was 1,000,000 degrees when Sam Rosen announced that this was going to be his last season. You knew that the end was coming. So watching that game, I'll admit that I was a little bit more upset than I thought I would be. Like, I knew it was coming, but it just, like anything, I guess, like sometimes you know it's coming, but it's still a tough pill to swallow. And that game, you know, seeing Sam's last game and some of the things that they did on the broadcast and the pregame and some of the stuff during the game, MSG did a really good job. It was tough to see him go. But the good news that came out of that game is the season was over, right? Like, I think we all have agreed collectively that when it got to probably the beginning of April, probably the loss to me at Tampa at home on April 7th, or maybe the Philly loss on April 9th, that at that point, you just want, like, we just need this to be over. We need to move on. Like, we need this bothering our lives. And I will say this, that the last 2 weeks, without having to worry about the Rangers on ice, although there's been a lot of stuff off the ice, which we're going to talk about, has been kind of enjoyable. It's kind of been refreshing. I'm not going to lie. So the season ends, and you're pretty much waiting on the news that if Laviolette's going to get fired. And by all indications, we've been saying it here for months. It's been said in other places that things were trending to look like Laviolette would be fired. Now, I had thought, and I think I said this that week, that I had thought because that was Easter weekend, they were not going to do anything until Monday. I didn't think that they would get involved in doing it on Good Friday or Easter weekend, but the Rangers didn't care and they fired him on early Saturday afternoon. Now, the interesting thing about it, and it's not getting talked enough about Laviolette getting fired, although the big story is, of course, Laviolette getting fired, is the fact that Phil Housley was fired also. Now, Phil Housley is a Hall of Fame defenseman. He played most of his career in Buffalo. He's an ex-NHL coach. He coached in Buffalo as well, did not have a good tenure there. And he was brought to New York to run the defense. And again, he was a Hall of Fame defenseman, so he knows what he's doing. Phil Housley is an example of someone in life that can understand how to do something but not understand how to teach it. Wow. Right? Yeah. Plenty of examples of that in the real world. So that is indicative indicative to me that the management was like what a lot of you have been saying for a while, that the defense has been atrocious. So Phil Housley goes as well. They decide to keep Dan Muse and Michael Pekka on staff. Why, I'm not entirely sure, but they did. And Peter Laviolette is fired. So not a surprise. And I said this on a Ranger page, and my comment on it kind of went viral, and I didn't mean it to. And it was like, look, it was the right move to get rid of Laviolette, but you can't sit here and point all the blame for everything on Laviolette because it's not all on him. So 3 days later now Laviolette is fired. They need a coach. I said that afternoon in the Instagram story, okay, that it was a sign that Chris Drury was in charge, because I would think if Chris Drury wasn't in charge and the coach was going to go, they get fired together. Why is Chris Drury still employed as of that moment if there's no coach? And 3 days later, that thought came to fruition when Chris Drury is extended in a multi-year deal. Now, it shows you that Drury, as a lot of beat writers have said, Dan Rosen has said it as well, he has a lot of power, and he's kind of in Dolan's ear. And if you've been around the Rangers for a while, and a lot of you have not, because a lot of you are in your 20s, and I'm jealous of that. But if you've been around them for a while, it's very reminiscent of Glenn Sather, right? And how Glenn Sather really just had an enormous amount of power with James Dolan for a long time. So it kind of looks like Chris Drury might be in that role now. Now, look, go ahead.
Was he up for an extension? Did he have a year or two left? Could they have waited out and see how he does next year?
They could have waited it out, but they wanted to extend him, which is a good point, because you know what? You could have sat here and waited it out, and you didn't. You just said, we're going to give you more of Chris Drury.
For no reason.
Now, I have said this for a while, and I know people don't like this, and I'm not, look, I come on here and I'm going to give you my honest take. That's what I'm here to do. But everything about Chris Drury, I don't have an opinion if this is good or bad, because on one hand, I can look at it and tell you that he made the Eastern Conference Finals in 2 of his first 3 years of being a general manager, which is incredible. That is an incredible stat to be able to do that. Hi, I'm a general manager, and in my first 3 years, I was within 1 round of the Stanley Cup. Put that on a resume, you're a star. Now, we could also sit here on the other side and play devil's advocate and list negatives and say Chris Drury had as bad of a year this past year as a general manager as I can never fathom anyone having, because of the whole Barclay Goodrow situation, the Trouba situation, everything that went wrong. Not everything, but a lot of what went wrong with the dynamic of this team and the team checking out and all these problems. A lot of that, in fairness, could be pointed at Chris Drury. So do you want to ignore the positives and feature and look at the negatives, or do you want to ignore the negatives and look at the positives? I'm in the middle here. I've been in the middle. I think Chris Drury has done some good things here. He's also had some good trades. Like, you have to be fair. He got JT Miller, and the only rostered player he gave up was Philip Hedl, who is unfortunately, and it might have happened in his time in Vancouver already, is a hit away from another concussion and possibly being, out a long time. That's a great trade. There's been other things that Chris Drury has done that has been good. So I can't sit here and just say, you know what, this past year he's got to go. The jury on Drury, like I say that 10 times fast. The jury on Drury is still out.
So some of the things that we talked about in the past as how he's been smart, some would say maybe manipulative on deals, and in your eyes or in the fans' eyes, oh yeah, he's a genius. He figured out a way to get rid of this person. But could that be one of the reasons why we lost the locker room? Because now they're all like, oh, you screwed my buddy over, my teammate. So like in the fans' eyes, oh yeah, he's making these great moves, whatever. But could that also be part of the reason why we're losing locker room?
Yeah, it could. But Chris is saying, and he's kind of tying in, if you want to pull up his second to top comment, really what it's saying, if you don't like the mean general manager, then leave, right? Because what it's kind of saying, and I like this, and Chris is right, is that Chris Drury is not leaving. So if you're a player here who checked out this past year, I'm not going to mention names, right? You've checked out. You now know Chris Drury is going to be here. If you have a problem with him, go to the front office in the offseason and say, I ain't playing here. And as a fan, I don't want you here anyway if you're not going to play. So it almost sends that message. Now, on Instagram, Gags Reflex has a really good point about Drury as well. You know, you can say what you want about the Trouba deal, but he got Anaheim to take that entire contract with no cash, with nothing retained here, which was that trade, if you remember, in December, that Friday, the first Friday in December, was all about salary cap relief. And Chris Drury got that done. So again, Chris Drury has done some good things here. I understand this past year is not what he would probably have imagined or the way that he scripted it, but he's done some good things for sure. Now, last week, as the Rangers are trying to still figure out their coach, it seemed that Rick Tocchet was getting a lot of traction here. It was reported that Vancouver had said they weren't sure if Rick Tocchet was going to come back. They were going to kind of leave it. I believe it was they were going to leave it up to Rick Tocchet. Rick Tocchet came out yesterday that he was not going to return to Vancouver, therefore making him a free agent. But Monday morning, as the Rangers, as like the NHL seems to do, because the NHL, I think more than any sport, there's no way to prove this. This is just an opinion. The NHL more than any sport seems to me that it will drop news at like the most random time. Like it's Monday morning at 9:15 a.m. And it comes out that Pittsburgh has decided to part ways mutually, I believe, part ways with Mike Sullivan, who has been their coach for years. Now, Mike Sullivan would be very high on the Ranger radar. We said this forever. It has been reported at the end of the season by plenty of people that if Mike Sullivan is available, and now he is, that the Rangers would go full court press on Mike Sullivan. Now, Mike Sullivan has a connection to Chris Drury, right? They both are Boston University guys, where I went to college. But also remember, as recently as February in the Four Nations tournament they did, Mike Sullivan was the coach of the U.S. team. Chris Drury was one of the assistant GMs. So there's a lot of symmetry between them. Now, some of you will say, and some of you, I may be talking to someone in the YouTube chat, but some of you have concerns about Mike Sullivan. And I think that's fair, right? There's no coach that's available right now. I guess there never really is. That is a surefire thing, right? But some people are going to say, well, Mike Sullivan has been in Pittsburgh for years and he hasn't won anything and he's had Sidney Crosby. Yeah, he has. But you know what he hasn't had in years is a goalie. You remember Tristan Jarry? He was terrible. Do you remember Spicy Pork Louis Domingue? He was terrible. Well, he's laughing over there, B-Rock. I got
you won B-Rock back.
I've been finding him all day. The fact that I got B-Rock to laugh the morning after the Devils were eliminated, I've done something right in my life. And, I just noticed he's not wearing his Devils hat today. Usually he does.
No loyalty to that.
Yeah. So Mike Sullivan has not had a goalie in Pittsburgh. I don't know how, and Crosby, as great as he still is, he's older now, right? The Erik Karlsson trade, which he didn't do, the general manager there, actually, I believe it was before Kyle Dubas, I think it was Jim Rutherford, was a terrible trade. Chris Letang has not been the same player for the year. Gensel's been traded. Don't tell me that Brandon Rust, or whatever his name is great either. He hasn't had people to win with. What coach is going to go into Pittsburgh with what he has had in the past few years and win? No one.
So he's your number one?
I'll get there in a minute. So to sit here and say that the situation that Mike Sullivan didn't win with in the past couple years in Pittsburgh is the same thing as here, is an absolute joke. You have one of the top goalies in the league in Igor. They had a goalie who had spicy pork before a game at some Chinese takeout at 33rd and at 7th Ave in Manhattan. Like, they're not the same. So stop telling me that Mike Sullivan is a bad coach. Does that mean that Mike Sullivan should get the job? I'm not entirely sure. But if you're going to make that point to me, you can't then tell me it's because of what he's done in Pittsburgh the last few years that is turning you off. Now, what is concerning, and I don't know this reason, I don't know if anyone knows this reason, is if I'm Kyle Dubas, the general manager in Pittsburgh, who made the decision to let him go, why am I letting him go knowing darn well that there is a great chance that Mike Sullivan will just go 250 miles to the, or 300 miles to the east, whatever it is, and go to a team in our division that is capable of winning? They almost felt like, you know what? Go. I'd rather you go for our rival, our division, a team that's going to give us problems in the division if he goes to New York, and go there. So we shall see on that. Now, keep in mind, Boston, Philly, Chicago, Seattle, Vancouver, and Anaheim also need coaches. So for all of these coaches that are out there, whether it's Mike Sullivan, whether it's Rick Tocchet, whether it's John Tortorella, whether it's the younger approach, you want to go David Carl, whether it's more retreads, Bruce Boudreau's name's coming up, or Guy Boucher, or the guy from Edmonton, Woodcroft, there's plenty of job opportunities in the league. Like, you should be updating your resume in LinkedIn right now.
Without being biased, obviously we feel like the Ranger situation would be the best. Without being biased, and you're a coach, out of all these open teams, which one's the most appealing?
The most appealing job is easily the New York Rangers, and it isn't even close, because you are a year removed from winning the President's Trophy. A lot of that group is still there. You have a goalie in your prime. It's New York City. It's an original six franchise. There, I don't.
No one's even close.
I don't.
There's not another roster. There's not another situation.
If I look
the weather,
if I look at the other team, well, Anaheim has you beat there. Boston is not. Look, I think Boston is probably the other spot that Sullivan would go to. He's the father-in-law of Charlie McAvoy, the defenseman there. He has ties to the Boston area. He went to college up there. So that's a possibility. Boston's that group is trending the wrong way in age, and they're getting close to having a rebuild. Mike Sullivan, could he go to Philly? I'm not sure Philly's the right spot for him. I think Philly is an interesting spot. You've got Michkov. It's a good fan base. I don't know if that's good. Chicago is not a good job. Seattle, I mean, I don't know. Vancouver's a disaster. They just traded the wrong guy. They traded JT Miller and kept Pettersson. Quinn Hughes wants to leave there. And Anaheim, I don't think is. I mean, Anaheim is a young team. They have Trevor Zegras. They have Mason McTavish. But I don't even think it's close. Like, I think that if I was a coach and I was saying I could go anywhere, where would my preference be? It would be the Rangers with what the other options out there. I don't even think it's close.
Nice.
So
we get first. So what? So do we have a top three?
Top three coaches. All right, that's good, because that's a fair question, because a lot of you guys are asking me on Instagram right now that. Last week, I had said before Mike Sullivan was available, it is up on Instagram, it is a post. I had said that Rick Tocchet was my prediction and probably who I would want. Does Mike Sullivan being available change that and move him to my preference over Rick Tocchet? Probably yes. I would say my choice was Mike Sullivan right now. However, what I would do if I was Chris Drury, there was a report yesterday. I thought about putting it on the MYPB page because it's important if it's true, but I don't know if it's true, and I don't like the source. There was a report that if Tampa loses in the first round of Florida, there is a chance that John Cooper could get let go in Tampa. Now, I don't think that would happen, because I think he's the best coach in the league, and I don't think the source that said it has any sort of credibility that I would trust. But if John Cooper was let go, that would be the easy choice. But what I think it shows you is that you might want to wait a week here if you can and see who else gets out there. If there's anyone else let go, that might be a better fit. Now, those of you asking, would you pair Sully with Torts? Torts could never be an assistant coach in this league, guys and gals. Think about John Tortorella and the way he runs his ship, how crazy he is. He can't report to someone. He can't report to another coach. He's a head coach, right? He absolutely could never in a million years be an assistant coach anywhere. I think if I'm John Tortorella, I'm either a head coach or I'm not coaching. Now, Chris is saying that Anaheim, has Leo Carlson, a good core and no out-of-the-gate expectations and very good weather. I would agree on that, but I still think the Rangers have a better chance to win it, and it's New York City versus Anaheim. It sounds like Anaheim has interviewed Joel Quenneville for their job. And Joel Quenneville, we all know the baggage that he comes with. So yeah, I would say right now, if you told me here's the options that you have, the options at your disposal are who is available right now, who would you take? I probably would take Mike Sullivan over Tocchet. But if you told me it was Rick Tocchet, I'd be okay with it.
Over Torts.
Yeah, I love John Tortorella. I do. And John Tortorella, for me, conjures up a time in my life 12 years ago where like things were different. It just was a really like great time and life was different and he was great. And I loved John Tortorella. I was sad when they got rid of him. I don't know that he's the right fit for this group. That doesn't mean I don't think he gets another job. Now, there's plenty of jobs out there. Like Tortorella also actually is a Boston guy. He's from Boston. So maybe he wants to go up there. Tortorella, well, he wouldn't go to Vancouver. He's already been there. I mean, maybe he goes to Boston. Or maybe he just says, screw it. I don't care. I'll go to Seattle. Who cares? Right? Like, I'll go to Seattle. No one will care how I do out there.
Is there anybody that isn't released or fired yet that there's whisperings or talks that could be available soon?
Cooper was the one, but again, I don't trust the validity of that report. I would love John Cooper, as Justin is saying on Instagram. So I think you have to look at the first round series and see. So the Devils lost. I wouldn't want Sheldon Keefe. Ottawa won't release their coach. Montreal's not releasing San Luis. In the West, Colorado's not getting rid of Bednar. The LA Kings coach, I don't even know enough about him. I don't even think that he would be let go. St. Louis is obviously not getting rid of Montgomery. If St. Louis beats Winnipeg and Winnipeg for some reason release Scott Arniel, who's been in the Rangers as an assistant coach, he wouldn't be my choice either. Minnesota, they're not releasing John Hines. Chris Drury could have got John Hines 2 years ago and didn't want him. No, I think the only one that would be somewhat attractive, and again, I don't necessarily believe it would happen, would be John Cooper. Now, Justin is asking about a college coach. If you were going to get a college coach, the hot candidate, as he should be, is David Carl out of University of Denver. They are perennially pretty much in the Frozen Four.
And he was the coach of Gabe Perreault?
No. He was not the Boston College. Boston College. Yeah, no, he's in Denver.
My bad.
It's fine. Hey, I'm impressed. He was David Carl is probably going to get an NHL shot at some point. I don't know with this group, with what you saw in the past year and how they just were totally checked out. You bring in a guy with no credibility as an NHL coach, and that's not on him. That's anyone who hasn't had the NHL ability or coach. I'm not sure that's the right fit. The other thing as well is I think as so Dan Rosen had a good point to me a couple of weeks ago. He said, look, a college coach, they can coach there for life. Why go and leave for the Rangers where the shelf life of the last three coaches were all 2 years, right? Why you want to leave your gig and know that the odds are that's an environment where if you don't do well, you're out real quick and you're back at square one and you've lost your college gig. I don't know how attractive the Ranger job is to a college coach. I don't. Like if I was a college coach out of those teams that are listed, Anaheim is the best fit. You've got a lot of young talent. As Chris said before, there's not expectations out of the gate. That's where I would go.
Interesting.
So last Monday, the Rangers held their breakup day. And what they do is if you've ever seen a breakup day in any sport, right? Because baseball does this, the NBA does it, football. When a season ends and the players kind of like 2 or 3 days later come back in, the media is allowed access to kind of talk to them. And I'm going to illustrate just a couple of the quotes from there that stuck out to me. There's a lot more, but I tried to pick out for sake of timing the ones that I thought were best. So Adam Fox, quote, "It seemed like there was a missing sense of cohesion. That resilience that we've come to make our own identity, we have to figure out why that was not there," end quote. That to me summed up a lot of the season in 2 sentences. I'm going to repeat it. It seemed like there, quote, "It seemed like there was a missing sense of cohesion. That resilience that we've come to make our own identity, we have to figure out why that was not there." And the key word in that, or the two key words in that quote, are cohesion, which was gone, right? And last year, this group was so cohesive. And the other word is resilience, because last year, we've talked about this, they'd be down in games and they always came back. They always made an effort. Here, this year, they'd go down in games and usually in the first couple minutes, and it was over. So we shall see. What's up, Nate? Good. Thank you for joining us on the Instagram broadcast this morning. So another quote. Now, Lafreniere, by the way, we put out a thing on Monday, which was the most disappointing player of the year. And we did it with a collab with NYR Discussion. And we both, the guy who runs it and me, didn't even have to think twice. It's not like we sat here and debated it. How is it not Chris Kreider? A lot of people got very, very defensive. I was surprised, and it's still in the comments. You could see it. Got very surprised at how many people were so defensive of Chris Kreider because he was hurt. If Chris Kreider was that hurt, why are you playing? True. If you're that hurt that your production, and you could see through the year, is dropping off to the level that it dropped off to, why in the world are you even still playing?
Yeah, it's not like he's like a decoy or something.
Right. He's not. So, but the reason I say that is a lot of you wanted Lafreniere to be the answer. And the quote from Lafreniere at breakup day was good also. And it was, quote, "I thought I had a good start and then struggled to be consistent in my game. I didn't really make a difference. I'm obviously disappointed in my year," end quote. So to me, the first thing I thought of was when I read the first sentence, I thought I had a good start and then struggled. You struggled when you signed the new contract. You had a good start, and then you signed your new 7-year extension. And I think it's 7 or 8, or I think it's 7 per year, and basically then disappeared. I have no idea what happened with Alexis Lafreniere this year. I wish someone had an answer, because if you said to me, are you confident that Lafreniere next year will regroup and rebound to what he was on the positive trajectory that got him that contract? I'm not confident in that. I mean, I hope he does, but he got the contract and basically disappeared.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least with that quote, I took a little comfort in knowing that he realizes it and is unhappy with it. I mean, look, it would be very difficult to ignore. Like, he can't sit here and say, well, I had a good year. I mean, you'd be like, are you drunk? Like, what's going on? And Lafreniere is barely of the drinking age, although he is. But yeah, so that was it. And so also from media day or breakup day, you had Kreider and Keandre both emphasize in their quotes how much they want to be here. Kreider said something along the lines, if I remember, "This is home to me, blah, blah, blah." Keandre, who's an RFA, restricted free agent this upcoming offseason, said something like, "I love being here. This is where I want to be, and my agent will walk you through the process." So we shall see. I thought about today getting into who's what free agent should they resign. We have so much time for that now because they're not in the playoffs that we're not going to do that today. If you guys have, before we go to the other series that are still going on and also might be eliminated,
so mean.
B-Rock, it's all him. It's not me. I want you to. I
didn't
saw,
say a word.
Timeout.
I haven't talked.
Can I ask him something? Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask him
But
something.
why are you pointing at me?
Because it is
you're
you.
asking. What?
It's
What?
you. It's been you.
What?
Hold on. I saw him in the parking lot. Now, any Ranger fan, if you see not a Ranger fan, any sports fan,
if you see their car, you slash their tires in the parking lot.
You see someone.
Yeah.
Your rival's team got eliminated literally 8 hours before I saw this man. I could have had a field day with him, but I don't because we don't have that relationship. I was fine to you, right? We were fine, and we talk normally. You come in here today, and you're trying to incite like World War VI between us. You are.
What did I say? What did I do? Brian, do you agree with this?
You're stirring the pot.
He is.
Whoa. The only thing I said when I walked in the door was because you had the highlights up was they lost in double OT. Oh man, I was working all night until 3 o'clock in the morning.
I think there were some other things you've said also.
Name one.
You said
what
something.
Did I do to mix?
You constantly get mad that me and Jeff aren't entertainingly mad at each other.
Yeah, he wants us to hate each other.
No.
For your entertainment.
Right, for his entertainment. Now, look, there would be things that are positive, right? Like if you and I went at it every show,
yeah,
it would be. It actually
GoPro over there, and we can get another camera angle, and you guys can go at it.
It would be good. Well, B-Rock is coming on the summer as a spoiler, right? Do you remember this topic?
Yes, I know the topic.
You remember. So B-Rock,
when fandom goes wrong,
B-Rock is going to come on the show this summer at some point, because I'd say this was maybe now like 3 or 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
B-Rock, I don't know why we were talking about this. B-Rock, he's a lot younger than us, not married, single. Right?
Living vicariously through B-Rock.
We are. We're living through him, particularly his New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
but anyway, he had said that if he met a dream girl, right? So you have in your vision, right? When you're single and how old are you? 27? 26.
Whoever at home, close your eyes.
Okay. Close your eyes. You're 26.
Yes.
You have a dream of what you want your future partner to look like.
Perfect.
Right? And personality, career goals, everything. All right. Yeah. B-Rock, we've found the woman for you. She is everything you want. Yeah. Your family loves her.
You're at the church. You're at the altar.
No. We're not there yet.
Oh.
He's out to dinner at like his 6-month anniversary.
Okay.
And he's at TS Ma. Okay. Because he's living large. He wants to go to TS Ma. See our friend Chris down the road. Yeah. Yes. But I even told someone this weekend was the best Chinese in the area. True. And he's out to dinner, and he finds out that she's been hiding a secret from him. And the secret is that she is a Ranger fan. B-Rock said it's over.
It's over.
So it doesn't matter that you have fit every other qualification necessary. Gone.
Yeah.
So the question is going to be, he's going to come on this summer and defend
himself.
Can you live if you had a perfect spouse?
Even went like a step further, that like, if the dream girl was there and like she just wanted to like hang out with you, he would nix it right in the bud. There's no first date. There is no like, okay, I'll let this slide for a week and play around with you. He's out.
He is out,
freaking out.
He's out the door.
Wow.
So anyway, we're not trying to get on B-Rock today. All right, going around the league for a couple minutes real quick. The Eastern Conference, the one series that did end. Speaking of B-Rock. Last night was the Devils and Hurricanes as the Hurricanes won in 5. My prediction was the Hurricanes would win in 6, so I had the right team, wrong amount of games. If I'm going to take away some positives for the Devils, Simone, what is it? How do you pronounce it? Nemec? Nemec, thank you. French boy over there in the corner. Was really good. Markstrom last night was incredible. I said to my wife, we were watching overtime, and I was just hoping the Devils would lose. Wow. And I said, why? And I literally said to her,
I didn't say that. You said that.
But I didn't say it against him. I hate the Devils. I don't need to be a jerk to a guy I like. Anyway.
Like, I hope your car doesn't crash.
I said in the first overtime to my wife, I said, of course, right now, Jacob Markstrom is the next Patrick Waugh. Like, he really was. So, look, the Devils obviously losing your franchise player hurts. Luke Hughes was hurt. They've been battling injuries. Dougie Hamilton's not 100%. The Hurricanes advance. It certainly looks like they will face the Capitals because the Capitals are up 3-1. Montreal had that game. They were up a goal going into the third at home in Game 4. Couldn't hold on. That game turned on a Tom Wilson hit, actually. And the Caps now go home tonight on Wednesday with a chance to clinch that series I would think they win one of the next 3 and play the Hurricanes. And those 2 teams, if you look at some of their regular season games, particularly in the last 2 months, have been disgustingly nasty. That'll be a really good and underrated playoff series. If the Caps play the Hurricanes, either team can win that series. I don't trust either team's goaltending, but that would be a very, very good series. The Maple Leafs, they're up 3-0 on the Senators. They lose game 4 on Saturday night in Ottawa. I'm not surprised, right? But you go home last night, you can't lose 4-0. You really can't lose. You had a chance to clinch, but now the Senators have life and confidence and win 4-0 last night. So that'll shift to Ottawa tomorrow night for game 6 with Toronto up 3-2. I would like to think Toronto finds a way to get out of the series. You can't blow a 3-0 lead, but it is Toronto, right? If there's a team that does these kinds of things, it's Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
But Craig Berube is a better coach than the other coaches that have been there. So I'm going to say the Maple Leafs get out of that series. The Panthers are up 3-1. What a disaster of a third period. Again, Lightning are on the road in game 4. They're down 2-1 in the series. They're up 2-1 in the third period. The Panthers scored 2 goals in 11 seconds. How in the world that happened? And the Panthers actually scored earlier in that period, and the goal was disallowed because the play was offsides like a minute prior. So they just couldn't hold the lead. And now the Panthers have a chance to close out that series tonight in Tampa. I don't think they close it out tonight, but I think the Panthers can close that out at home and win that in 6. In the West, the best series we've been saying this is the Stars in Colorado. The Stars right now lead 3-2. They can clinch it in Colorado. I doubt they do. My prediction all along was that series was going to go 7. I said it would be the Stars in 7. I am sticking to it that the Stars win that series in 7. The Kings and Oilers last night. The Kings go up 2-0 in that series. They had chances. They could have won both games in Edmonton and did not. And then last night, Edmonton goes into LA and wins there. And now Edmonton's up 3-2 with a chance to clinch that series. The Kings and Oilers reminds me of the Rangers and Caps in the late 2000s, early 2010s, where it just seemed like they were playing each other every single year. That's what's going on with that series. Man, if I'm the Oilers, I'm doing everything I can to close that out in 6 because I don't want to go back to LA for 7. Mm-hmm. The Jets and Blues series is tied at 2. The game 5 tonight in Winnipeg. Connor Hellebuck was terrible in games 3 and 4. Absolutely terrible. He's always, his splits are that he's been better at home. You better hope that stays true, and he's good tonight at home because if he's not, you can win the President's Trophy and be out in the first round. Remember the Bruins 2 years ago, but that's a bad look. I like that series to go 7. I like the Jets to win tonight and the Blues to win game 6, and then game 7 to come down to how well Connor Hellebuck plays. The Vegas and Wild, I picked the Wild in 7. I'm sticking to it, even though the Vegas is up 3-2 in the series. They won last night in overtime to take the lead. Those games, look at how close those games have been. The overtime games, that has been an extraordinarily close series, and we said that the Wild are good enough to run with Vegas. And that series I still think is going 7. So some pretty good hockey there.
So I gave everybody homework 2 weeks ago of the team that we want to adopt for the playoffs. Now here's an interesting twist. Not rubbing it in anyone's face, but now that as of last night, the Devils are no longer in it. Now that this has happened, now you guys can join forces and join a team and adopt a team and cheer together.
B-Rock, is there anyone you're cheering for? Is there? Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. He won't even date the
girl.
He won't even date the girl. He won't even.
Time out.
So hockey's over to you. They're not even watching the Stanley Cup.
You can't. Time out. In B-Rock's defense, you can't ask him to adopt the team 6 hours after he was eliminated.
Okay.
He just went through it.
Okay.
Chris says, of course, as Chris says, Connor Hellebuck is the Panarin of goaltending. Now, Chris, as we all know, and we love Chris. Chris,
he does no defense.
Yeah, no.
That's pretty bad thing to be as a goaltender.
Actually, Chris, that could go 2 ways. He's right. Chris Panarin. He hates that Panarin plays no defense.
That's a terrible goaltending trait.
He's saying that he's bad in the playoffs. So Chris actually had
double whammy.
Double whammy, Chris. Chris meant 2 things in that, and Doug picked up on it. So we shall see. Now, our broadcast schedule, as we know, as we get into this time of year, on a personal note, my regular work job, this is literally the worst 5 weeks of the year for me. And there's not a lot going on, so we probably will remain every other week. The only thing Rangers aren't going to really make any moves until July or end of June. But the only thing that really could happen on a Ranger front, knock on wood, I shouldn't say only thing with the way the season has been, who knows what could go wrong, is that they'll hire a coach. And they probably, I would think, hire a coach before we're on in 2 weeks because the first round series would be over. I mean, the coaches will eventually start to fall. You would think Mike Sullivan and Rick Tocchet would be the first two coaches to fall wherever they end up. And then the other ones would probably filter in. So there's definitely a chance of that. We thank the Bamboozle.
Whoa. We still, for the past 3 weeks, have not answered my question. What? Are we adopting?
I don't care who wins.
Wow. Both of you, you're stealing Brian's answer.
But I've been.
Paul says go Blues, beat Winnipeg. Jeff Adelson says let's go Panthers.
Now, Jeff Adelson is down in Florida Panther country.
The remote studio.
So when Jeff Adelson is saying go Panthers, he does.
He's got his ear to the ground.
He's got
grassroots,
but he's got his ear to the ground. But he also he's in that country. So I don't know that it's an adoptive team. He lives in South Florida. He covers the Yankees from South Florida.
Tricked us
from the DraftKings studio. He did.
So do we have two teams? Like obviously,
I don't.
Brian doesn't want Carolina to win, right?
I don't want anyone to win.
B-Rock, would you be tolerable if the Stars won?
I'd rather a team from the West win. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So look, all right, here we go. All right, so we just eliminated. There we go. Here we go. So let's be.
So you guys can both agree that should be a West team. So it's not.
Yeah.
McDavid. I'm rooting for not the Oilers. I'm rooting for Connor.
Okay.
Wow.
Would it bother you if Colorado won because of Mackenzie Blackwood?
If it was because he stood on his head and was the best goalie in the playoffs, yeah.
You can see. You can hear it in his voice. You knew what the answer was coming.
So like not last night, the game before, the Oilers had a crazy comeback. I fell asleep and then they were down 4 goals and it was an overtime. But that was a crazy game. So the Oilers is on the top of Brian's list. Or Connor McDavid is on the top of Brian's list. Jeff, do you have a top?
I don't. I actually will say this, and I also said this last night to my wife when we were watching the games. The past watching playoff hockey the last week and a half has been very enjoyable because I haven't had a vested interest in this team, right? And last night watching the Devil game was the first time I got into it as like a fan because I wanted Carolina to win. It's been enjoyable. That I think the playoffs as a whole has been really competitive and it's been really good to watch.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I hope that continues.
So Chris wants the Avalanche. Emma wants literally listed every team. Sorry, Emma. Wild, Leafs, Stars, Maple Leafs. So I mean, yeah, it would be nice if we could all come together and pick one.
Maple Leafs would be Matthews. Yeah, I like that one with a pinch of cute. That one, that I would be fine with Toronto. Actually, I'd be fine with a Canadian team winning for a change.
Okay.
I mean the countries do. Edmonton and Toronto are the best shots at that, or Winnipeg, I guess. We thank the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship as always. Go to thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB at checkout. We thank DraftKings as well, and we will talk to you most likely in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, we are around, and you can DM us anytime at Mind Your Pucking Business on Instagram. Have a great rest of your day.